Hi, I'm Jim McCann, founder of 1-800-Flowers. I'm not satisfied when I learn something new unless I share it forward. And so we created this podcast to continue that, to share forward the wonderful people we get to meet and most importantly get to learn from and make our lives richer and better. Together we'll cover the human experience. And for me, the human experience is foundational in the idea of relationships. The topics will be far-reaching, but common element you'll see here is it's all about relationships. So I invite you to join us on this journey. Come experience it with us, share your thoughts and ideas, and become part of our community. We'd love to have you. Give you a little bit of background of why we're here. It was at the very beginning of COVID that we weren't sure how to respond, but we had very real sense of how we were feeling being here in the New York area, and we started on this journey of writing a letter to our customers, who we now refer to and feel more as a community. And so we started what we call the Celebrations Pulse. That's our weekly newsletter that we write what's going on, what we're feeling, what's on the calendar, how should we be interpreting what's going on around us. And now we're launching Celebrations Chatter, which is just a podcast extension of that same work we do in creating the Pulse, but now in a video audio form in our podcast to share that same information, maybe dive a little deeper. But this is all my effort to share forward. I get so excited about the people we get to interact with here at Flowers and in our other business efforts. And I just don't feel it's done until I've shared it, whether it's with my family or with my colleagues here at Flowers. If I learn something, I want to share it. And now we want to continue that journey in our podcast, video cast here with Celebrations Chatter. So come experience it with us, share your thoughts and ideas, and become part of our community. We'd love to have you.
Today's guest on Celebrations Chatter is Tracy Chadwell. Tracy is the founder of 1843 Capital, an early-stage venture capital firm built to make a difference by upholding values of integrity, diversity, and distinction. Named to the inaugural Forbes 50 over 50 list and one of Entrepreneur Magazine's 100 Powerful Women, Tracy is a sought-after speaker and prominent leader within the community of women founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs. She has been a speaker for the Nantucket Project, MIT, TEDx NYIT, and has even given her expert testimony before a U.S. Senate committee. Tracy studied at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut before receiving her J.D. from Loyola University of Chicago. Before 1843, Tracy was a partner at Baker Capital and a vice president at Robertson Stevens. Currently, Tracy serves on the Super Connector board of Aging 2.0, a leading innovator in the silver tech industry. Aging 2.0's international, interdisciplinary, and intergenerational community strives to accelerate innovation and address the biggest challenges and opportunities in aging. Let's learn how Tracy shares it forward on this episode of Celebrations Chatter.
So you create 1843. You get through about a few hundred no's. You create a fund with the idea that you're going to invest in your area of interest behind technology, behind things that are changing and improving the lives of people, in particular in this space that you've defined as silver tech, which I just love. Thank you. Give us an idea of where you first invested.
Joe Coughlin has built in Boston the MIT Age Lab and really sort of looked under the covers there and thought, what are you doing? Because you study this every single day. And his number one priority was mobility. So we focused on mobility for the first place of investment in this fund. And we ended up making two investments in the space. One is a really exciting autonomous shuttle that drives itself. And unlike a lot of the other self-driving technology that you've heard about. This one is actually up and operating, and they're able to run because they're doing closed courses. They're just running in loops over and over again. But it really is helpful, and it's a way for people to get around, especially, as people are aging, they either shouldn't be driving or can't drive anymore. But again, back to your point about loneliness, that we do want to make sure that people are part of the community and are not lonely. So this shuttle is incredibly effective now in 7 different cities across the United States, and they've also launched in Hiroshima, Japan. Their OEM, or original equipment manufacturer partner, is Toyota in this company. We also invested in a company called Hop, Skip, Drive, which is more point-to-point. It's like an Uber or a Lyft.
Nice name.
Thank you. Except they have care drivers. So 80% of Hop, Skip, Drive's drivers are women, and it's nice because you can recruit women to do this because they enjoy driving children and people who are older to doctor's appointments and things like that. So this company has been terrific. We're really excited about it and what it's doing to change people's lives.
Step back, if you would, for a minute, Tracy, and give us a sense of a professional investor like yourself. You look at the landscape,
right?
You make early investments, you're refining your investment strategy, you say, okay, these things are working. New technologies are introduced to change the lens in your glasses about where you're going. Right. I did not know until I met you about Silvertech. And I'm like super excited to hear about it. And on my team members at Harry and David, who are focused on this as an area that they want to make a difference in, we're crazy excited about the fact that you and I'd be chatting today, and I'd be bringing it back some nuggets of information. So tell us, how big is the market? How many companies are out there? How many companies have you looked at? Give us a sense from an investor's point of view of how you size this market.
Right. Well, we could break down each market independently, but just consumption for people over 50 is in the trillions of dollars. Yep. It's a massive opportunity, and 70% of the wealth in this country is held by people over 50. So that is really where the capital is. If you're selling a consumer product, you might want to consider that market because it is the largest one. We always believe that it's the calls you make, not the calls you take. In venture capital, a lot of people say, I have great deal flow because it comes from this venture capitalist or that venture capitalist.
Sure,
and
sure.
We've thrown that model out, and we said we would rather go look at the landscape, map it out, find out where the most interesting places to play are, because in this space there are a lot of really interesting companies that are doing great things for people, and those might be candidates for grants. We have to focus on companies that are doing great things for companies, but we'll also give our a great return to our investors because we are fiduciaries.
And that's the magic of capitalism, isn't it? That you can do well while doing good.
Absolutely. And I would argue each and every one of the companies in our portfolio does some really, really great things for people. And they also are, we're also seeing them really increase in valuation as the time goes on because they have a great market opportunity as well.
How many investments are there in your portfolio today?
So we've made 12 investments to date.
And give us an idea of the range of investments. Kinds of companies. You mentioned 2 already.
Yeah, we talked about mobility, which is a really big space, and I could see us doing another investment. We're actually looking at the personal mobility space right now, so we could do another investment in mobility for sure. Caregiving, obviously, as you and I have discussed, is probably one of the biggest opportunities out there, not just from a need perspective, because there are, as you mentioned, 50 million unpaid caregivers out there that really need a lot of help, but then we are seeing the government coming in and saying, look, this is something that we believe that should be paid for as well. And we're seeing a lot of interesting solutions in the technology space to help this.
And where are you seeing creative things done to provide care to an individual who needs it in their home in an untraditional way?
Well, we have, there are lots of different companies that sort of match you up with someone to talk to digitally. So if someone has an iPad that they can speak like, Hello Papa with their Papa Pals does that. We also have connected devices that are monitoring people in their homes. We've looked at a lot of different companies that detect falls. You're seeing Apple get into this with their Apple Watch. I fell actually a couple months ago, and it said, do do you want me to call someone? And I had to push the button to stop it from alerting me, which was fantastic. So it's not just the old pendant around the neck. There's all kinds of interesting innovation in this space. And we looked at one company that detects falls and then actually uses the data to then go back and do predictive analytics as to when a person might fall. So, this is obviously more relevant in a senior living or memory care facility, but it actually will alert people before the first person falls, which is incredibly valuable.
I understand that the big issue for older people is when they fall. Or
yes.
That they can fall, and declining skills and abilities and balance. And
right.
so many people
Absolutely.
have had vertigo issues, and there's some really interesting science that has gone on to fix that. Well, you have that manipulation now, the board manipulation, where you can fix the inner ear crystals so that people don't suffer from vertigo. And I've heard the data, and I can't recall it, but it's a significant number of people who have not fallen as a result of fixing their underlying vertigo difficulty, which has saved them from the physical harm that the fall usually would have caused.
Isn't that terrific? It's it's really amazing, and it also is one of the leading predictors then of morbidity. Yes. If a person falls, they're much.
You break the hip. It's linear. You see the bad spiral, right?
Absolutely.
You talked about the spiral staircase of life, but there's a bad downward spiral in life when the fall is the catalyst for a decline.
So true, and doesn't have to be that way, as you mentioned.
So mobility is a big investment area of yours.
Yeah.
How about social interactivity?
We haven't taken a position there yet, but we have looked at a lot of different companies. This is an interesting, is back to sort of the way we think in investment. We think a lot about customer acquisition costs. How much does it cost to go and get a customer for each company? And in the social space, it's been very difficult because people's attention is disparate. You can't catch them all in one space like you used to be able to do, 20 years ago. If you just hit an ad on ABC, you probably could catch a majority of the population, but that isn't the case anymore. Attention is all over the place, whether it's on Facebook or whether we're reading the AARP magazine or, we're reading the Wall Street Journal or whatever it is that happens to be of interest, cable news shows. It's all over the place. So it's become very, very expensive to target people, to bring them in. So it's hard to get those started.
We've come across a company, Tracy, it's a small Israeli company.
Okay.
And a couple of years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I was having a chat with one of our board members here at Flowers. His name is Adam Haft, and he's a brilliant guy and a great friend and a great board member. And he asked me, is there something you're not doing now as a company that you'd like to do? I said, well, yes, Adam, there is. And that is, we have so many people in our customer base, ergo our community, who have life skills and experiences that would be beneficial to other people, but there's no way to connect them. And so he went away and came back about a month later. He said, after you said what you did, I went and looked in my notes and I found a small Israeli company that was doing something that sounds a lot like what you were trying to describe. And this company is called Wisdom. And we invested in it and we used them as a foundation to create our connection communities. And I mentioned to you earliest in our discussion today that I've been struck by how many people choose to come to our peer-to-peer help connection community built around loneliness. So that's both people who are coming that they think they can help someone else, and they're coming altruistically to see if they can be beneficial in that dialogue. And there's so many people who are coming to want to be part of a group or chat with other people or just listen to the dialogue to see if it's beneficial to them. So that strikes me. And now we have this caregivers community, but the underlying technology is provided by Wisdom. And I just had a chat with Boaz, the founder of that company, just last week. And he has an experiment going on now with a large healthcare insurance provider. And just connecting in a specific community, in a peer-to-peer environment, senior citizens who are under their healthcare coverage, has reduced by a dramatic amount the number of self-reported days of sickness per month. It shows you the inextricable connection between relationships, social intimacy, social connectivity, and our physical health. Where have you seen that manifest itself in your investment pursuits?
Well, first of all, that's wonderful. I love hearing that story. It's really terrific. And I 100% believe it because I think that connection is so very valuable. One of the places.
People who are married live longer.
Yes.
People
True.
with pets live longer.
True. Yes.
People who work longer in life live longer.
Yes.
Because I think work, we don't talk about it as much as we should, but I think work is so much social.
Right. It's really.
And people live in communities where it's populated by a lot of folks live longer. So, I mean, right. All the anecdotal evidence says relationships matter a whole lot.
It's really true. And it's nice to see that we have that validated, right, and quantified. So I think that's terrific. One of the other companies that we've invested in the caregiving space is a company called CareLoop. And this has shown, absolutely unbelievable ROI in just giving people support when they're going through a caregiving journey. If you have a child who is diagnosed with a disability, or maybe your mother is diagnosed with an Alzheimer's, it's very difficult to know what your next steps are, and whether you could have mom at home with sensors, or maybe she needs to be in memory care, or maybe just a senior living environment might be fine, or how to get her transportation there, right? All these issues, navigating Medicare and Medicaid. And CareLoop actually provides care coaches that walk people through this journey, and I just think it's incredible.
Is that remote?
It is remote, and the people are very comfortable working with the coaches remotely. And this is an employee benefit.
It's sold as an employee benefit.
Yes. So if you work for Procter & Gamble, or if you work for Pfizer or BlackRock or Northwestern University, these are things, this is available to you. And what I like about it, from a financial standpoint, it's fabulous because you can show the ROI that the person is back to work and doing their best work. But I think also, too, from an emotional standpoint, Absolutely. That's a really tough time. And having someone go through it with you that has already navigated it, I just think is genius and such a benefit to employees, especially as, we've seen this she-session happen.
Give a little definition to that, if you would.
Yeah, over 2 million women have left the workforce during the pandemic.
For reasons like school being out of session, they had kids at home.
It's caregiving.
It's
pure and simple. Absolutely. So to the extent that this can help women stay in the workforce, or anybody, if a man has a problem with one of his parents and needs help, I just think it's a fantastic, wonderful gift to society, quite frankly.
And tell me about the care coaches. Where do they come from? How do they get compensated? How do they get trained? And I assume there's a big technology backbone that they're interacting with that homogenizes and qualifies and improves all the time the care they're giving.
Right, absolutely. So they come from different places in the caregiving strata. They could be a skilled nurse, but what they do then is they have a proprietary training program within CareLoop, and then there is a technology component to it as well.
The concerned family members of the person receiving care can get regular and frequent updates on where they are in the care cycle.
Absolutely. Yep.
And the payer is the insurance company, or is it the employer?
No, it's the employer.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's structured on a per person per month basis.
What are you seeing as you put your investment hat on in terms of what insurance companies are doing to everyone is always critical of insurance companies.
Sure.
But I've lately gotten a glimpse as to how much resources the insurance companies are properly behaviorally incented to Absolutely. Try and improve the quality of lives of those that are insured, because the behavioral incentive is if they live better and healthier lives, they have a better return.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think insurance companies are truly moving in the right direction. And I think they really have their population's interests, at heart, and are trying to do the best job that they can. It's a little bit of catch up because technology is moving so quickly. But I did recently heard that there actually is a CPT code for loneliness now. So they have quantified. Yeah, absolutely. Apparently, I apologize if it's not right, but I've heard it's $7,000 a year, which is great.
Say the number again.
$7,000 a year.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah.
But makes sense, I guess. I think it makes a world of sense. And the fact that the employers, the P&Gs of this world, are providing that as a benefit.
Right.
Interesting, Tracy, that business, in particular, you mentioned all large businesses because they'd be well known to our audience, but
right.
I think, I'm going to editorialize here a bit.
Yeah,
I think business, and particular big businesses, don't get the credit they deserve for the social impact that they have. I'll give you, for instance, in the early and mid 80s, when 800 numbers were the rage, our 800 number, that is the 800 Flowers telephone number, was owned by AT&T. And then they had the big consent decree, and now the numbers were owned by the individual, the company, rather than the telco. But my brother Chris and I, we were pretty big customers of the telcos because all of our business then was done on an 800 number. Wow, the new technology that it was. We got a chance to rub up against AT&T a lot. So here we are, a couple of poor kids from South Queens, and we get to venture out to New Jersey to AT&T headquarters, and we actually befriended the CEO of AT&T. It's just a wonderful man who mentored us and just became a great friend of ours, named Bob Allen.
Yeah.
And we got to look over his shoulder. And one of the things that Chris and I talked about in the car on the way home on one of those trips was how seriously he took equal opportunity in the 80s, when we saw more African American people in the workplace than we'd ever seen anywhere else. When we saw gay people in the office with high-ranking positions in the company, and it was no big deal. And here we are coming back saying, wow, things really are different there. And so the point I'd make is, in the 80s, our earliest recollection of rubbing up against big-time corporate America impressed on us that big business can be such a positive force for change. So it can be decreed and it can be mandated. But when people like Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan, or Bob Diamond when he was at Barclays, or Bob Allen at AT&T decide, this is what we're going to do, everybody falls in line and it happens.
Right. It's domino effects, right?
It is. It is indeed.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that begins to manifest itself in your area of interest in terms of caregiving communities.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at something like Carrie Lupin, that they are with these larger corporations, and we are seeing a domino effect on that. There are other areas of interest for the corporations as well that we have been investing in. We just made an investment in a company that's going to change its name, so this isn't the right name, but the name is Plenish, and it's a digital health company for women over 40. And you may or may not realize, but menopause can be, disabling for women, and women over 40 are at their very best. This is when they have all the experience and all the great networks and can be really great at what they do. And so for them to suffer, hot flashes, more African American women suffer hot flashes than others. And it's debilitating. It's a tremendous amount of sweat. And it can be extremely embarrassing socially. But then brain fog too, and not being able to sleep at night, which I think probably the brain fog comes from not being able to sleep at night. But, there are so many solutions for this. And whether they're, holistic solutions, which may be, hey, yoga, or maybe take a supplement like ashwagandha, which helps reduce stress, or there are hormonal therapies as well that could be used to help people out. When I was just about to invest in this company, I was in Costco, and I was watching the woman checking out behind the counter, and she was working really, really hard, and all of a sudden I saw her lean her arms on the bags of frozen fruit. And I thought, what is she doing to my fruit? And she looked over at me with a knowing smile and said, menopause. And then she turned a fan on herself. And I thought, this woman is here. She's giving her all. There's no reason why she should be working under these conditions. So I am really proud to support and have invested in Plenish, because now that will be available to corporations to give to the women that are in their workforce to try to help them be their best every day at their job.
So Plenish is a panoply of different approaches.
It's a digital health solution for women over 40 dealing with hormonal changes.
Oh, okay, so you say digital. So the backbone is, I'm going to deliver you a digital solution. Well, how does it manifest itself on the back end?
Yeah, so it's a telehealth solution.
Telehealth.
Yes, with providers.
Uh-huh.
And there will also be a backup with technology to help women through their journey as well.
And that's a subscription model?
Yes, it is. It is a subscription model for corporate private pay.
Corporate private pay. Interesting.
Yep.
When you and I last chatted, Tracy, we talked about, again, back to NYU. Then I may be off on the numbers, but not by much here. In the weeks just leading up to the weeks of March of 2020, just before we realized what this pandemic was going to be like, NYU Langone would do something in the order of 300 telemedicine visits a day. Today, it's fast forward 20 months or so, it's 15,000. That genie's not going back in a bottle. We've heard a lot in the investment community this year about companies that aid and abet and facilitate telemedicine practice.
Right.
Is that an area that you've looked into? Are you investing? Do you see things that are really interesting there?
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you. The genie is out of the bottle. And I think for a lot of different situations, I think talking to a provider, through a phone or an iPad is perfectly acceptable and in a lot of ways preferred, right? Because you don't have to leave your home for some of the more simple matters. And we're also looking at a solution for heart health in that space as well. Now that we've exploded on that side, I think the in-person experience needs to be disrupted as well. And so we're looking very closely at a company. I won't say the name since we haven't invested yet, but it is disrupting the in-person health experience. So on those occasions when you do need to see a provider in person, this is a completely different way of doing it.
Well, I can tell you that just by we were just chatting as a group at dinner on Saturday night about how just in the last few years, our own personal experiences with interacting with the health system has changed so dramatically for the better.
Yes.
The confirmation of your appointment, being able to make the appointment online, having access to your digital health records, getting the results of a blood test on your phone instantly as the results are available, not having to wait 6 days or 5 days to connect with your care provider to find out what their interpretation is. Getting to the doctor's office and having a warm welcome and being told it'll be about 6 minutes before the doctor's ready to see. I just, in every way imaginable, improved. And I'm willing to bet that the company you're looking to invest in will take that to another level.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We're incredibly excited about it.
So tell us, how's this fund of yours done?
Well, I can't speak specifically to numbers, but has
it been pretty good?
It's been outstanding. It's been outstanding. I think a lot of that is we're in the golden age of venture, and the public markets have certainly been on fire, and we see valuations that are wild out there. So when we go to raise money again for our companies, of course, you're going to have a huge step up, whether they've done well or whether they've done really well. We see great valuation step ups, which can sometimes make us a little nervous as well. But going in when the rounds that we're in, we try to be very conservative.
So are you in at the early stage? Are you in an angel stage? Are you in a Series A, Series B, the early rounds of investing?
So we invest at a stage that's called early stage, and early stage means Series A and Series B, technically. We have done a few seed stage investments, but we don't normally feel comfortable with the risk at that level because that's what I call the man with the plan.
Sure.
Somebody who has an idea but really hasn't executed on that.
You're smart capital, but you're capital.
Oh, yes, exactly. So we've mitigated the risk in the seed stage by investing in people, entrepreneurs who have done it before. So at least we know that they sort of know how to do it.
They know how to fail. They know how to succeed, and that's very important.
That's true.
Is this a fund that you do episodically, or were you taking capital on a regular basis?
So the way that generally venture capital works, because I I'm not sure I'm allowed to speak specifically to the public about what we do, but the way that venture capital generally works is that it's raised in funds. So a certain amount is committed to a fund, and then as the venture capitalist makes investments in deals, they draw down that capital and ask for a check, and the person then sends the check, and the venture capitalist aggregates all that and invests that in the company into, generally speaking, preferred equity.
Got it. And we just read last week, and I don't know enough about it, but we just saw that Sequoia moved from a fund environment to a master fund, and I can't wait to read about the particulars of that. But they've been such a lead dog for so long. I wonder if we won't see other investment shops follow their lead.
Oh, I think there's all kinds of innovation happening in this space. And, sometimes people will say that the traditional model is broken in venture, but I think the traditional model has been working quite well, both for the companies and for the investors. They're the people out there taking the real risk. Government does do a little bit with grants, but most of the innovation in this country has come because of private investment, and it's done through vehicles like this.
I think what we've learned is this may not be the best model, but it sure is awfully good, and I haven't seen anything better. All for government funding. For example, I've been given the reason to understand that the big concern among some of the research scientist community here in the U.S. and frankly globally is around long haulers. 56 million people in the United States now have had COVID, and some people are long haulers. That is, they have long-term effects. And I had dinner last week with a young friend who told me he had it early in March of 2020, and he still has had no breathing capacity. He says he walks a flight of stairs, he has to stop and take a break and take a rest, and he's a young, fit guy.
Right.
And I heard of another guy just this week who hasn't gotten his taste back. That's not like a big issue, except that he's lost 50 pounds because eating is now a chore for him.
Oh, my goodness.
So there's all kinds of long-term effects. So here the government, without any fanfare, stepped in and gave out nearly $500 million in grant money to this academic research community, who are these dedicated, selfless scientists that we're privileged to have leading us in this area, just to coordinate long-haul research. What are the long-haul effects? So they're getting ahead of it, which is wonderful to see. But then there's all the things that people, smart and talented people like you, Tracy, do in the venture community, in the private equity community. This thing sort of works. And I think what you told us early on about the baby born in Singapore today and what her life will be like for 97 years, I think that number just continues to go up.
Oh, absolutely. I believe so as well. We've seen some suggestion that we're going to top out at 120 or 130, but you know what? Honestly, who knows?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But more importantly, everyone says, but what's the quality of that life going to be? And people like you are putting capital, real American capital and global capital behind some great things that'll change their lives and make them an appropriate return. And isn't that wonderful?
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree.
So, Tracy, we really appreciate you sharing your knowledge about the whole area of investing behind the things you know so well and the ways that you're improving lives and making great returns for your investors as well. I think the silver tech space is one that we'll be reading more and more about because of your pioneering efforts. And we can't wait to get a chance to chat with you again about how your fund is doing, what kinds of things you're seeing, and just keeping us alert to the kind of things that will make our world better every day.
Absolutely.
And you got to work fast because I'm already old.
We are. Things are changing every day, so stay tuned.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for being with us and sharing your knowledge with us.
Absolutely.
That was Tracy Chadwell joining us here on Celebrations Chatter. It really is amazing what's becoming possible through silver tech now. And it's such a treat to hear about it from someone who is right on the front lines of this innovative, emerging industry. If you want to find out more about Tracy and the incredible work she's doing, please visit 1843capital.com and www.aging2.com.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard, and I know I'll be sharing it forward. I hope you get to as well. Let's keep the conversation going. Follow me along on Twitter at Jim1800Flowers and on LinkedIn at Jim McCann. Hope to talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Celebrations Chatter. You can join our community by reaching out at chatter@celebrations.com. And while you're at it, tell us what topics you'd like us to explore here on the Celebrations Chatter podcast. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to share it forward.